So on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Los Alamos, I'd like to welcome you to this forum. I'm Barbara Califf. I'm co-president of the League. The League is a nonpartisan organization. Our mission is to enable voters to make educated decisions on election day. We welcome new members, both men and women. There are membership forms on that table, I believe.
Is it on?
Stay closer. Stay closer.
Closer to your mouth.
Yeah, you gotta get right out.
Okay, that better? There are membership forms on the table over there. And you can also learn more by visiting our website, lwvlosalamos.org. I'd like to thank the businesses and organizations that are supporting our efforts this election season. The AAUW, American Association of University Women, CD Fox, the Dell Foundation, Los Alamos National Bank, the New Mexico Consortium, Stan and Jill Premack, and TRK Management. Please silence your cell phones now, and please do not record any part of this forum. PAC 8 is here tonight, and Jean will put the video on YouTube. And when she sends me the link, we'll put it on our website so you can watch it as you wish. County Clerk Naomi Maestas would like to give you some information about the election.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me back there? Yeah, we're good? Okay. So I just wanted to share some quick election information with everyone. Voter registration closes October 9th, which is not this coming Tuesday, but the following, so it's fastly approaching. Anyone needing to register or change their party affiliation can come into our office until 5 p.m. that day, or they can go online to nmvote.org until 11:59 that evening. So if you know anybody that needs to register, please share the information with us. That link can be found off of our webpage as well. For those that are not familiar with nmvote.org, it's a great online tool for folks, for our voters. You can get voter information. You can get, if you're not sure, if somebody's not sure if they're registered, they can go on there, see if they're registered. They can register online as well. They can also request an absentee ballot. They can track their absentee ballot. They can print out or view a sample ballot. It just has a whole slew of great voter information, and that's a tool from the New Mexico Secretary of State's office, which also, like I mentioned, it can be found off of our webpage. Absentee voting also begins October 9th, in person and by mail. We've had a lot of absentee applications being requested. We cannot mail them until that date. Saturday, September 22nd, we did mail out all of our UOCAVA ballots. That's for our overseas and our military voters. Any requests we didn't have received until that point have already been sent off to them. The next thing is extended early voting. Hours begin with Saturday, October 20th. That's when we open our additional site out in White Rock. It's moved from the library now to White Rock Town Hall, so please keep that in mind. We've extended or changed our hours a bit. We're now early voting, or absentee and early voting is going to be 7:30 to 5:30. The last day that anybody can early vote will be Saturday, November 3rd from 7:30, and that will extend until 6 p.m. that evening at both sites. The last day for our office to mail out absentee ballots is Friday, November 2nd. However, we do not recommend folks waiting that long because it has to be physically in our hands by 7 p.m. on Election Day, November 6th. Election Day information is our centers are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Our locations are the County Municipal Building, Council Chambers, Los Alamos County Golf Course Community Area, and the Multi-Purpose Room. And we've also extended a site, which is our Betty E. Hart Senior Center, to provide better access to the ballot for those with mobility issues. That's the best place. Golf course is also good, but we've opened that additional site primarily for that. for that use of the voter mobility issues. And that will be downstairs in the classroom. So I just want to add that our office has really expanded our voter drive efforts. We've been out in the community as much as we possibly can with an office of 5, on top of all the other duties that we do in our office. We just ask that if you know anybody that needs information from our office, to please go to our social media sites. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find great information there, or our website. Unfortunately, we can't be everywhere at once, but we really want to increase our voter participation, and this is the best way that we know, other than trying to be out as much as we can. We'll be back in our back table. We have our Chief Deputy, Adriana Ortiz, here this evening as well. And if you need any information or need anything from us, we have our sample ballots and early voting information. Thank you all. Have a great evening.
I would like to say I really enjoy working with our county clerk. She has done so much good work that it makes it much easier for the league, because we don't have to get out and register quite as often as we used to. We're pleased to welcome 2 volunteer assistants from the Hilltalkers, the high school speech and debate team. There's Shruti Garamella and Lexi Alcala, and they're up front here. So we're going to begin tonight with Ann Nobile, our probate judge, who's running unopposed. Then Jim Nagel, the public information officer for the North Central Regional Transit District, will explain the ballot question. And then we will meet the candidates for county council. So now Ann Nobile will speak.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you to the league and to everyone for coming out this evening. Okay. What if we do this? Is that any better?
Stay close.
Stay close. Okay. All right. I've served as the probate judge for just over 2 years now, and it's been a privilege. I'm running unopposed, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to continue to serve. For those unfamiliar with my civic background, I volunteered with Girl Scouting for 13 years and as a Planning and Zoning Commissioner for 6 years. But assisting fellow citizens as the probate judge has been a more personal experience. Often our customers share anecdotes about their loved ones, or the relief they feel when they realize we can provide the documents they need to access bank accounts, safe deposit boxes, and other assets of the decedent that will help them move on in the process of distributing the person's property. To add to their stress, often they are from out of town and they're short on time. They're working hard to do as much as possible to work through their loved one's estate. And in New Mexico, we're fortunate that the New Mexico Supreme Court provides fill-in-the-blank forms that most of the time enable citizens to represent themselves and complete the probate process quickly. I'm often asked, how are you qualified? There aren't really there's not a set of qualifications for this office, but my educational background includes a BA in English, a paralegal certification, an OSHA certification. And during 24 years at the lab in health and safety, I've spent lots of time reading regulations and interpretations to ensure compliance. And this has been especially helpful in the probate office when unusual cases arise. When I said earlier that this job has been a privilege, I meant it. Our customers are most often prepared, gracious at a difficult time, and a pleasure to assist. Notable and worth mentioning is that our citizens are not always characterized by the wealth and privilege used to describe Los Alamos in the press. Statistics can only tell so much. The reality is that some of our fellow citizens struggle with the costs associated with the death, and they must be able to access the decedent's assets to pay for funeral costs and other bills associated with the final illness. And this is where our office comes in. We strive to be available quickly by phone or email to be able to respond and assist with this process. This is also where our staff demonstrates amazing compassion and dignity. So again, thank you for this opportunity, and please call on us anytime with your questions about probate. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. So now Jim Nagel is going to speak, and he will not be limited to 3 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing me out, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for allowing us to come in and talk tonight about the ballot question that we're going to have on the November 6th ballot. My name is Jim Nagel. I'm the Public Information Officer for the North Central Regional Transit District, and if the folks in the back cannot hear me, please speak up, because I can talk pretty loud if I need to. The NCRTD is known as the North Central Regional Transit District. Many people know us as the RTD, and even more people know us as the Blue Bus. We were created in 2004 and began service in 2007. Our service area is more than 10,000 square miles in north central New Mexico, and includes the counties of Los Alamos, Rio Arriba, Taos, and Santa Fe. We also provide service to each of the 8 northern pueblos, as well as the Hickory Apache Nation. We provide 25 fixed routes, 23 of which are fare-free Monday through Friday to our fare-based. One is called the Mountain Trail Route, which goes from downtown Santa Fe up into the Santa Fe National Forest and to Ski Santa Fe. The other is called the Taos Express and provides weekend express service between Santa Fe and Taos. The RTD buses travel approximately 1.3 million miles a year. So we travel a lot, we keep busy. Who are the riders of the district? For many people, it's truly a lifeline service. Over 50% of our riders earn less than $17,000 a year. And when you consider that the poverty rate for a household of 2 in the United States is about $16.4 thousand, it is a critical lifeline. A lot of the riders might be two-parent households that with one car, but they both need to work. So it's a critical service. 56% of our riders don't own a vehicle. We provide service to commuters, people getting to and from work, seniors, retirees, and caregivers, veterans, people with disabilities, people without cars, visitors and tourists, people who choose transit over driving. A lot of our riders are just, want to be green. Public transit is sustainability. It removes carbon from our atmosphere and makes the air we breathe cleaner. It also reduces wear and tear on our roads and highways, thereby saving money. What we're here to talk about tonight is on the November 6th ballot, there's going to be a question about whether you reauthorize a 1/8 of a 1 cent gross receipt tax. It's called the Regional Transit Gross Receipt Tax, and that goes to provide funding to the RTD. It's not a new tax, it's not an increase in tax, it's simply a reauthorization of the existing tax. And here in Los Alamos, Los Alamos has had a really critical part in the formation and the ongoing service that the RTD provides. One of the first grants that was provided to the RTD was through the Progress Through Partnership program here in Los Alamos County. And in fact, our headquarters in Espanola is named after a Los Alamos County councilor by the name of Jim West. It's a Jim West Regional Transit Center. We provide a midday service to and from Los Alamos, from Espanola to Los Alamos, down to Pewaukee, where people can connect onto buses to Santa Fe or Taos. And one of the reasons it was set up as a midday service was because for a long time you had the park and ride, the NMDOT park and ride, which would take people on and off the hill in the morning and and at the end of the day, primarily servicing commuters. But in the middle of the day, if a resident here in town needed to get down into Espanola for shopping, into Santa Fe for medical services. They didn't have that option. So, or even someone working up here who maybe had an emergency at home and took their park and ride in and needed to get home in the middle of the day. The service is there to provide that ticket for people to get home. And you could take a park and ride in the morning and come back in the middle of the day here at Los Alamos, or take the RTD in the middle of the day and get home in the evening by park and ride. And that's kind of how it was set up to provide service. Another benefit to LA County is that regional transit gross receipt tax contributes about $1.4 million a year to Atomic City Transit, and basically funds the routes that go between Los Alamos and White Rock. So that $1.4 million amounts to about 20% of the operating budget for Atomic City Transit here in Los Alamos. In fact, last year that service provided the routes that we specifically fund provided over 90,000 rides between Los Alamos and White Rock. The reauthorization has received bipartisan support. Early on we did some research and polling with Brian Sanderoff, who heads up a Albuquerque-based polling company called Research and Polling. And it found that about 85% of Democrats supported it, 82% of independents, and 71% of Republicans all expressed support for the reauthorization. What this means for the RTD and also for our constituency, the regional transit gross receipt tax provides about 68% of our revenue. The remainder is made up through federal grants and various other revenue sources. Of that regional transit gross receipt tax collected, approximately 60%, totaling $4.7 million, is shared with Santa Fe Trails, Los Alamos Atomic City Transit, and the New Mexico Rail Runner Express to fund regional services that they provide. Without it, the NCRTD and its regional partners, Santa Fe Trails, ACT, the Rail Runner, will not be able to operate their existing services nor expand for future needs. So it is a valuable service, and there are many who benefit from it, and I'm happy to take any questions that the audience might have. Yes, ma'am. Last year, the RTD operated routes provided service to about 280,000 people. When you add in the routes we fund, it was about 738,000 people that were provided service through the RTD and the funding we provide to the other transit providers. Yes, sir.
For how long does the reauthorization last?
The part of the question, when the Regional Transit GRT was approved in 2008, the voters did not vote on an expiration. However, when the ordinance was written up by the counties, it included an expiration of 2024. And one of the things this would do is get rid of that expiration. And so it would last indefinitely at that point. And part of the reason it was implemented in the first place was that it was a new service. People weren't sure how it was going to take off, if it would succeed. And we have proven ourselves over that time. We have been consistently recognized and honored nationally and statewide for the service we provide. The Federal Transit Administration awarded us with the Administrator's Award for the best regional transit service provider, and that was in 2014. NMDOT has awarded us at least 5 times with various statewide awards recognizing the service we provide. We have proven ourselves to be stewards of the public trust and public finance. Each of the last 3 years we've been recognized by the General Finance Officers Association, the GFOA, for our annual CAFR, and for the last 2 years for our annual budget. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
So now on to the main event. The county council candidates are seated here already. The order for their initial statements will follow the ballot order, which was determined by a lottery held in the Secretary of State's office on August 31st. So our candidates are David Israelowitz, Sarah Scott, James Robinson, Randall Wrighty, Helen Malinsky, Brady Burke, John Trujillo-Voss, and John Bliss. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for an introductory statement. After they've spoken, we'll have time for questions and answers. Then each candidate will have 1 minute for a closing statement. I'm asking you to hold your applause until the closing statements. Please show your respect for this process and for the candidates by behaving courteously. So we'll begin, and I'm going to sit down so you can just go in order. Thank you. Well, it's up. So the candidates can speak from their seats or at the podium, whichever you prefer.
Can we move the microphones out and stand up? Can we?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
So.
Let's see if I can everyone hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. I'm David Israelowitz. I'm running for re-election on the County Council, and I also want to thank the League of Women Voters for this event, and also for everyone for showing interest in our local government. It's been a privilege to be your counselor over the last 7 years. And frankly, if you read the local news and kept up over the last 7 years, I think you're well aware of what I've done and how I voted. And I think this record will trump any comments I might make tonight, but it is a record that I'm very proud of. One of the things that I've learned over the last 7 years is that there are many unforeseen issues for our community in the future. Thus, I want to share with you primarily what my basic principles are and how I have learned to approach some of the difficult issues before us. A basic responsibility of a counselor is to advocate for our citizens and to look over our operations with a view toward efficiencies and effectiveness of our tax dollars. I believe that in the last 7 years, we have improved staff effectiveness and delivery of services. We have a good both management team and also people on the ground, and we've implemented some new out-of-the-box ideas. We have, for example, we just finished a major computer upgrade of our functions, and the goal is to be able to use the system to better monitor and quantify county performance and accountability. We continue to put money into our basic infrastructure, such as our sewer system, our electric distribution, and our roads. There's more to be done, but a good example of what we've done so far is the neighborhood street improvements in the western area and North Mesa over the last several years. Communication is the second major responsibility of a county councilor. I've really I believe, worked hard to be accessible to our citizens. We may have chatted at the farmer's market or around town. I may have responded to a question or request via email, telephone, or even answered a question through the Los Alamos Vision 2020 Facebook page. A third major responsibility is strategic thinking of our community. I was a supporter of the Trinity Site Project almost from its inception, and it's helped us stay in town to shop locally and changed our shopping habits. I've been an energetic supporter of seeding private efforts like the New Mexico Consortium, and I also believe that our town should support our social needs and amenities that make us a better place to live and work. So we are an asset and not a liability to recruitment of our major employer, Alamos. The new teen center and the Ashley Pond Park improvements are two success stories that I'm proud of built during my tenure. I didn't see the sign. What did it say? 30 seconds. I'm known for preparation on county councils, blah, blah, blah. I'll skip over that. if I have the honor to serve for the final 4 years, I'll still ask tough questions while respectful of a professional and dedicated staff. I'm proud of the history of Los Alamos, and I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Hi, I'd like to say thank you, as David did, to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event, to all of you for attending and participating, and I'd like to say thank you to my fellow candidates for running. It's been nice to get to know most of you, at least a little bit, over the last few months, and I've appreciated that. I'd also like to say thank you to all the folks who have taken so much time with me in helping me understand the issues, the basis for some of the operations in the county, and other things that have really helped me understand the hopes, concerns, and ideas that the folks of this community have for the future. I came to Los Alamos about 30 years ago. I fell in love with the mountains, with science, with the community. I married my husband at White Rock Overlook, just above one of our favorite climbing spots. We've raised our kids here, and I'm thankful for the opportunities we've had in public schools, UNMLA, and the community activities and engagement that we participated in and which are part of the fabric of our lives. I care deeply about this amazing place and feel that in the coming years we'll be facing changes that will present challenges, but also opportunities to make us even stronger. To address this, I propose to make change work for us and focus on several different areas. First of all, our economic base, and that means keeping healthy and growing businesses that will help diversify our economic base, but also help continue to make Los Alamos and White Rock attractive places to live. The environment, and that means protecting our open spaces that we hold so dearly, continuing to work towards achieving our county's environmental objectives, and given that the environment is changing, looking at how, just as an example, recreational opportunities could be evolved to, again, create things that are fun for us to do in this community, but also potentially help grow our economic base a little bit. I'd also like to pay attention to our changing demographics, and that means looking at and addressing the range of housing and service options associated with new folks that are coming to live here, the increasing number of retirees choosing to stay, while not forgetting those that are struggling and in need in our community. To these efforts, I will bring my broad perspective that comes from participating in this community as a parent, a volunteer, a scientist, and a consumer. My skills, including leadership of large and complex organizations, communication, and I also bring my passion for using my energy and skills to make a real difference. I'm Sarah Scott, and I'd be honored to serve you and the community on County Council.
Good evening, everyone. My name is James Robinson, and I'm running for County Council. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. These forums are a fantastic civil service, and I appreciate you guys putting this on for us. I also want to thank UNMLA for hosting this event. I always feel at home here, and it's great that we can have these events here at our wonderful university. Finally, I want to thank my family who's in the audience. They've been with me through this whole campaign, and I really appreciate here that they're still here to support me. And this is where I'm going to lose that. My path to Los Alamos was around 30 years ago as well, but it was a slightly different route. And that's when my mom gave birth to me just right up the road at the Los Alamos Medical Center. That's also the same hospital as she was born in. As a second-generation Los Alamos native, Los Alamos has always been my home. I was educated from elementary to all the way through my associate degree here at UNMLA. Even when I furthered my education, I continued to make Los Alamos my home away from home, when in 2009 I became the third generation of my family to get hired at Los Alamos National Laboratory. Many of my milestones of my life so far have happened in Los Alamos. My first job at Baskin-Robbins, which I've served many of you a scoop of ice cream. My first apartment over by the municipal building, and even purchased my own Denver Steel just down the road. Since returning to Los Alamos after getting my my bachelor's in business, I've strived to become an active member in the community. I currently serve as chair of the Environmental Sustainability Board. I co-founded and led a nonprofit for wildlife rehabilitation and education, and you often see me wearing that bear hat for the Bear Festival. I graduated from Leadership Los Alamos in 2016, and I'm a constant advocate for UNMLA and a proud supporter to lead their mill levy effort. My focus on council would be the upgrading and expansion of our housing and our infrastructure. I would love to clarify some of the ordinances so we could bring community focus into those laws. I'd love to expand the county's current environmental initiatives. We're doing so well, I'd love to see us continue on those. And I'd love to develop tourism and recreation in our town. Our county has an exciting yet challenging future ahead, and many of these initiatives will be dependent on the path of the land gross receipts tax. The next council will need to hear from and effectively communicate with its citizens to make these long-term decisions. And I believe I can provide an open ear and a fresh voice for all of our citizens, both young and old. Again, my name is James Robinson, and I'd be honored to have your vote.
Well, thank you to the League for putting this together. It's a great forum, a great turnout tonight. Thank you for all for coming. So my name is Randall Righty, and I'm one of the candidates for County Council, and I'm a first-time candidate. So there's quite a few candidates that are first-time candidates. There's others that have run before, and even an incumbent on the list. And I really appreciate getting to know everybody, and I appreciate everyone's service to the community. I think that's pretty important. Well, I've lived in Los Alamos for over 25 years. I moved here to start a small business called Neptune & Company, and with other partners, it was very successful over the years. And one of the things I learned in helping to lead that company as well as other organizations was that I could help to make a difference by my participation and leadership in organizations. And that's why I'm running for County Council. Well, a couple of the things that I've been involved in, I've been involved with the Parrito Environmental Education Center. I actually helped them write their business plan back in the early 2000s. Dave Fox was too. The other thing I did was serve as their president. I was well for that group. I was on the public schools science fair committee for over 10 years and helped coordinate the judges. And I was on the county transportation board. So I've come across a lot of different issues for the county personally. I say one of the most important things I've been able to do in the campaign is actually get out and talk to people and hear what they had to say, what their concerns are, and sometimes things they like about what the county's doing as well. And it's interesting listening to people, and what some people have noted is, especially people that have recently moved to town, is the housing, the lack of housing. And what I'd like to really see is a broad array of housing for a range of people and income levels. And I think that's something that the county could work on supporting further. We do have some efforts in that regard now, but I think it's good and useful to think about the kinds of people that might be living here if we had a little more housing. We're here at UNMLA, and perhaps UNMLA students could actually live locally, and they might actually be available to work in some local businesses if they didn't have to take 2 hours a day commuting. So I think that's something we could think of as a benefit. And one of the areas I think we really want to look at in terms of getting new housing is redevelopment of existing properties, potentially development of new properties as well. So kind of in closing, I guess I'd like to just ask for your support for the fall election, and if you have any questions for me or like to have more information, you can get to my website. It's righty4council.com. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm short. You can't see me. Maybe my eyeballs of the podium. Hopefully that's enough to get my point across and connect. My name is Helen Malinsky, and I'm here to not only ask for your vote, but tell you why what I have done matters to earning your vote, and why what I'm going to continue doing is going to help prove that I can earn your vote. So, experience and goals. This is how everybody has kind of divided up their spiel. And my experience with Los Alamos started whenever I was in high school. I graduated from high school here. I started classes here. Then I left school here at UNM to go and have a family. I raised a family between here and Santa Fe. I moved back whenever I was an adult and continued my education here at UNM and finished my degree. Now I work over at the lab. During the course of that time, I also worked for the state for several years, and some of my proudest career memories are from the time that I was working for the state thus far. I'm looking forward to more. Goals. That's really what we're here to talk about, is what I can do for you. And because this is a job, but it's also a service. It is what I'm going to be doing to serve you as the constituency and the community. What I've done so far, when I had friends and family come to me and tell me that there was a problem with the notices of violation that were being issued, I got involved. I got involved heavily. But I didn't just scream and stamp my feet and cry about it. I went and I worked with the county council, and I learned the process. And now we have a community development advisory board, which I'm very proud of, because I was instrumental in helping facilitate that. So now we have community involvement that is directing that. And that's the kind of passion that I plan to bring to this position. 3 goals that I have if you elect me. Diversity of business. This is something that has been spoken of. But most importantly with the diversity of business is getting the county out of the way, not just helping, but finding ways to help, also getting out of the way so that the business can thrive. Updating and aging infrastructure. We are a growing population. We are putting a lot of stress on aging infrastructure that is going to fall apart if we don't take care of it. That's going to be a financial need and burden. And most importantly is respecting your rights as citizens. And I feel that sometimes, because of the way the local government works, there's a little bit of a fudge factor, and sometimes that gets taken advantage of, and people end up feeling like they've been taken advantage of. And I don't want that on my watch. I want to be there for you and respect you. So please consider voting for me. Talk to me if you have questions. Thank you.
I'm going to bring my glasses just in case. My name is Brady Burke, and I'm your candidate for Los Alamos County Council. My platform is simple. The Los Alamos County government has grown so large, and our county council has become so detached from the voters and the taxpayers that they no longer work for or represent the citizens of Los Alamos County. Our county government is making huge economic decisions that do not put Los Alamos first. Let's take the NCRTD ballot that's coming up in the November election. We're told that this is a reauthorization of an existing agreement, but in fact it's a change to the agreement. The county and the council want to take away the checks and balances of reviewing this outlay of money every 5 years by removing the sunset clause. They will tell us that they are going to watch it though. Just like they told us they were going to watch the regional coalition. That whole association with the RCLC has exploded in the county, the council, and the image of Los Alamos itself. I don't think we can trust their assurances. Our county council will accept emails and grant you 2 to 3 minutes at a council meeting to express your concerns. Neither of these efforts will change the council from what it's going to do. Take the rec bond. The voters believe they were rejecting these projects by voting down the bond issue. The council saw it differently, so they moved ahead with the projects. Not one, not a phased approach, but all of them at once. How about the sheriff's office? The voters said keep the sheriff, and the county council then decided to take away all the funding for the sheriff's office. How many lawsuits did we suffer for that? We need representatives on the county council that understand that they work for the voters. They need to be our oversight of the county government. They need to protect the Los Alamos residents. So how am I going to change this? First, we need to get the voters involved again. We need to bring back town hall meetings so the community can talk to the council and talk to the county and understand what's coming down the line. We need to slow down the fast track of county government projects through the county council. We need to manage our money better. We need to make the county find solutions that invest in the community. Construction projects should leverage local businesses. County work should hire and train locally and create apprenticeships before hiring from outside the county. Housing should be available so that people that work here can live here. We need to adjust the county's budget to fall in line with our revenues, not raise taxes to support their growth. We need to invest in White Rock. They should benefit from the taxes they pay and not from a distance. My name is Brady Burke, and I'm asking for your vote to represent you on the county council. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dawn Trujillo-Voss, and I'm running for County Council. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting us. I'd like to thank you for coming out to listen to us, and I'd like to thank all the candidates for being here. With that, I feel it's important to acknowledge a conversation with Sarah Scott. This conversation, we discussed women don't usually run for a political office. If they do, it takes a lot of encouragement and support from family and friends. Most of the time, we don't win the first time. So I want to thank Sarah and I want to thank Helen for stepping up with me to be candidates. With that, I want to tell you a little bit of who I am. I grew up in Chimayo. My family is from Chimayo and Truchas, and I graduated from Espanola Valley High School. I moved to Los Alamos in 2009 with my daughters to live with my husband, and I worked for Lano. I worked for Lano for 15 years. In August of 2016, I decided to earn a degree in project management. Keep in mind, I'm a mom, a wife, a full-time employee. I find the time to volunteer, to be a full-time student, and why did I want to go back to school? I went back because I was unhappy. I felt that my potential was not recognized. While still working in my position, I was given an opportunity to work on a project, a multi-million-dollar project. I was doing project management. I was doing a great job. I had the support of my group leader and my division leader to pursue my education and to work on this project. I felt important. I felt like a member of the group. I felt valid. 2 weeks before I earned my degree, I was pulled aside and told that my division hires engineers and not project managers. So what did I do? I applied for another job. I competed. I earned a new position in a new group. Why do I want you to know this? I want you to know this because I'm not a victim. I'm strong. I'm resilient. I stand up for what is right. I stand up when people try to push me down or hold me back. I don't take no as the final answer. I want to know why. I want to know if there's a better way. Why do I want you to vote for me? No one gets to take away my voice, and I will make sure no one takes away your voice. Your voice needs to lead the county government. I'm Dawn Trujillo-Voss. I'm a candidate for Los Alamos County Council.
Good evening. I'm John Bliss, and I'm running for County Council as well. I'm grateful to the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's event, and I thank everyone here for their interest in good government in Los Alamos County. Nancy and I retired from the Army after a 22-year career and selected Los Alamos. I experienced a lot and learned a lot in those years. I learned about leadership, about responsibility, about integrity, and about working with diverse teams to achieve results. I'll give you one example. I participated in 2 NATO working groups, working with multiple nations, obviously. But at the end of those, the NATO Secretariat thanked me for providing leadership to the only 2 groups in their memory that ever completed their task on time and dissolved themselves. I also experienced a number of communities. We've moved 14 times in those 22 years. I've been here now in Los Alamos for 21 years and still learning as we've enjoyed and grown to love Los Alamos. But recently I've heard of dissatisfaction with council's decisions or perhaps its implementation. And I do want to say that my experiences with the vast majority of county staff and employees have been very positive. They're very responsive and polite. But there's something not quite that gets through. Some candidates have identified concerns to address perhaps tonight. They have on last, including taxes, code enforcement, utility management rates, transparency. I agree with all or most of those issues. We also have concerns that we've talked about for years. Housing, economic development, supporting small local businesses, sustainability, infrastructure, supporting mid-teen and aging population. I believe we need leadership to do it all. We can't do 1 or 2 things. They're all important. I will evaluate every decision in terms of how well it will address the needs and concerns of our citizens and residents in Los Alamos County. I want a better, sustainable, viable community for all residents and visitors. After all, 4 of my grandkids live here.
So now we'll take questions from the floor. We'll have 1 minute to pose one and only one question. If you have a second question, you can raise your hand again. The questions must be addressed to all the candidates. Please make no statements or comments. We're here for the candidates' opinions. Your comments can go to the Monitor or the LA Daily Post. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question. The candidates should address the audience, not each other, and refrain from personal attacks. I know we won't have any trouble tonight. Our timekeepers will hold up warning flags, as they've already been doing, so you know how much time is remaining. Shruti has the mic, so if you have a question, please wait till she gets to you with her mic so that we can all hear you. If you're in the middle of a sentence, this is for the council candidates, when the bell rings, you may finish the sentence, but do not start another. So, yeah.
Yes, I'd like to know how each of you feels about construction of a flow trail in Bayou Canyon, a bike flow trail in Bayou Canyon.
So I was getting some additional instruction on the order up here. So so you want to know about the flow trail, but I didn't hear what it was you wanted to know about the flow trail.
In Bayou Canyon,
In Bayou Canyon.
proposed for Bayou Canyon.
So I believe, I believe that the county should be able to find a location for the flow trail that meets everyone's needs and doesn't interfere with anyone else's rights. I mean, the county's not large, but we have a lot of recreational space. I'm a little bit confused of why the Bayou Canyon. I've looked at the routes there and the grading that's been proposed. Seems like there are other alternative routes. I don't know why that decision's going forward, so I'm not necessarily in favor of it, but I'm not saying I couldn't be convinced, but sitting here tonight, I don't think that's the best way to go.
I know that the Bio Canyon Flow Trail has been very controversial. I went to a League of Women Voters meeting last week and listened to a presentation from a representative of Parks and Rec. And she explained that the ski hill was looked at, however, the ski hill is too steep for a flow trail. Other trails were looked at, and from my understanding, there's going to be the possibility of a new constructed trail that will intersect the horse trail, as I understand, in 2 sections, but it's going to be engineered to where you can slow down. It's going to be wide enough. So I think it's underway. They're looking at a new trail, new construction. The budget, I think I read in the paper somewhere $900,000, but I couldn't find that in the paperwork. So that's what I know.
I'm opposed to the flow trail in Bio Canyon. I think we currently have a use for it now for regular cyclists and hikers and horses, and I'm opposed to the camp for a number of reasons. One, the environmental impact. You know, we're getting in there. We're going to go ahead and the construction on that is going to necessitate knocking down trees, creating additional environmental damage. The county, I don't think has considered the impact of the cost. I brought it up at the council meetings about how they were going to pay for this, and of course it's going to come out of your pocket. I had suggested that there be some fees charged associated with the flow trail to work on recovering the costs. But like so many other projects that we're being told about, we're being told, well, it'll bring the tourists, and then they'll spend money here. But I haven't seen the numbers to justify that. I'm not against tourism, but I'm against us building it in the hopes that they will come. So I'm against the flow trail.
So I think this issue is, like so many, a little bit more complicated than what it seems on the surface. And I've talked with and listened to a lot of the equestrian community here in Los Alamos and in White Rock. And they've spoken of concerns that you can't just engineer away, okay? You can't engineer the response a horse is going to have whenever it's spooked or startled. You know, there are certain things that they can't engineer. Not only that, but all of this engineering that's going on is happening in a relatively delicate environmental place, okay? Our canyons have microclimates, they have animals, we already have bears that are roaming our streets because we've claimed so much of their space. What's going to happen when, yet more is having to be shared in our recreational space? On the surface, I could be convinced, but it's going to take a lot to convince me that this is the best path. I'm not initially for it. I think that there are better locations, and if we have some of the best engineering and scientific minds up here, I'm pretty sure we could find a way to make a flow trail up in the mountains or up by the ski hill that would actually be very good. Thank you.
Okay, can everyone hear me? No. Is that better? Closer. A little bit closer. Take it out, listen down. Is this counting smart my time? So the county has on their website flow trail project information, and I reviewed that as part of my homework for running for council. So they've actually outlined 8 different trails in the package as part of one of the deliverables. So one of the trails is actually potentially in conflict with the equestrians. coming off of Bio. They have an alternate route in Bio, and they have 6 other trails, including ones in LA Canyon and Pueblo Canyon. So my question about the flow trail is really the logistics of it. You know, how will this work? Are they, because it's basically you're going to ride down and get a ride back up. Is there infrastructure in place for doing that? That's more my question. That's one question I have about the flow trail, just how that would work. So I think that the flow trail could be a good recreational opportunity, but I think there are some concerns with the different users in the canyon and whether or not we can construct a trail such that it would, not be in conflict. So if you look at the criteria that it came up with, they had 8 different criteria for the 8 different trails. So they got scores, and so some of them scored relatively highly. And one of the ones that scored highly is in DP Canyon. Now the unfortunate thing with that is it's not county land. So the question really becomes, you can't score highly if you need to build this trail right away. So it's they're going through a logical process to look at what options we have. I guess I can't say anything else.
This is a more common question that we're asked as we're on the campaign trail, and I am in agreement that bikes and horses don't mix. I've been out on Horse Mesa before. I've seen horses spook very easily over nothing much. So the route through Bio Canyon for that instance gives me concern. As was alluded, there's several other options, but there's also logistics about parking and transportation for those riders that have to be addressed before we even construct the trail. So in my opinion, Bio Canyon's too small and the parking is not adequate for that kind of trail that you want to build there. So I don't think that would be a great place for it. And the safety is another good concern. I would be interested in seeing those other options being explored before Bio Canyon is engineered. When it comes to scope, schedule, and budget, I believe the trail system has been scoped fairly well. I hope that the open space would have more permanent role than an outside person because they build our trails, they maintain our trails. So going forward, I would probably prefer Bio Canyon not be used for a flow trail.
So first of all, I want to say I support evolving our biking options in accordance with the comprehensive plan, and that includes improving and expanding the trail system for all users. At this point, as others have said, an initial evaluation of 8 options has been performed. 3 to 4 options will be selected to be presented more broadly to the appropriate boards, committees, and for public comment. I think these discussions and the public comment should address factors including safety, environmental, historical, and cultural impacts, multi-user impacts, cost, long-term maintenance, and overall fit into our current and future trail systems. I do realize, I've spent a lot of time talking with folks about this, some of you are aware, that there's concern about whether their voices are being heard and whether their opinions will be taken into account. But I do support using the process that we have, letting the folks finish their work, input the discussion that they have from these engagements, and then hear what their final proposal is regarding where and what this trail looks like before making a final decision. I've really been impressed by the professionalism and thoughtfulness of folks as I've spoken to them about this, and I think we've generated actually a lot of good ideas and may continue to do so through these discussions for other options for extending our trail systems in a reasonable and doable way for all folks in the community. Thanks.
Excuse me, so I'm actually quite familiar with this project because I was, I believe, was the original person that brought up using $50,000 out of our mountain biking fund toward this. The genesis of this was conversations with local business and mountain bikers who said that we have a world-class mountain biking environment, but only for world-class mountain bikers. That is, we have very small, we don't have a lot of areas where family-friendly families can go on mountain biking. So that was the original genesis of this. Whether to do it in Bio Canyon or whether to do do it somewhere else. As has been mentioned, there are a lot of other options. That is not what this project, I think, is about. It's about trying to find whether we can find mountain biking in other areas that complements what we already have. And I can assure everyone in the audience, as I've done to the equine community, to the mountain biking community, that we're not going to build any trails that are not safe, that are not maintainable, that are not family friendly, that don't correspond to all the other constraints that we have. So I agree that we should let the process continue and then go from there.
Another question?
Hello, my name is Michael, and I'd like to ask you all, what are the top 3 guiding principles that you value or that matter to you from which you operate in your daily life?
Me first? Oh, okay. First and foremost, integrity. Do what you say, mean what you say, and follow through. You have to. Integrity is the opposite of hypocrisy, and something I can't stand is hypocrisy. I've encountered it in my day in and day out life, and it gets under my skin like no other characteristic. Whenever somebody is saying one thing and doing another, it drives me crazy. And so I would say my guiding principle is to ensure that I am above board and I use integrity in my decision making. Beyond that, I would say honesty and communication. Those are 2 things that are key to maintaining positive relationships with the people you work with the people you care about, and even the people you don't care about and maybe you don't necessarily like, but you have to treat with respect and in a professional manner. I would say that pretty much sums up how I feel and what guides me. Thank you.
So one principle is honesty. So that's important, just any kind of business you're doing with anybody. You have to feel like they're getting an honest response from you. And sometimes it's giving people hard, honest information as well. I would say another thing that's important to me on a daily basis, try to do this, is some form of collaboration or teamwork. I think that's something that's important to me in trying to get things done. And lastly, I would just say respect for other people.
Well, I'm going to go ahead with honesty as well, and coupled with that is being direct. It bothers me if somebody is sugarcoating something or trying not to express themselves, and you have to dig through all of that to get to what they're really saying. Quality. When I do something, I want to do it the best way that I possibly can. Looking for a simple solution to a complex issue would be nice. But I tend to take my time and research things and dig into them and make sure that I'm doing things right so that what I produce is a quality product. The third item is open-mindedness. When I'm being direct, a lot of times I'm going to get direct answers. And I have to understand that that isn't a confrontation, that's an exchange of ideas. And so I need to take somebody's response to what I've said and their ideas as another way of looking at things, rather than an objection to what I say or my objection to what they say. We all have good ideas, and there are a lot of solutions that we're going to be able to put in place by coming to an agreement and a balanced solution in the things that we think need to be done.
Great question, especially since my parents are sitting here in the audience. So, like so many others, one of my guiding principles of everything I do is honesty. I cherish it above anything else. Even if it's the brutal truth, just tell me the truth because it's much better than just a white lie. Another one is hard work. At any given point in my life, I've never once had much free time because I'm always trying to give back to something or somewhere else. So I always give 100% into what I can do, and I'm never once without any kind of project I'm working on. And then finally is a dedication. You know, when you promise something, you got to follow through with it. And if you promise to volunteer for something, it's nice to show up and follow through on that. So I always try my best to make sure I pick what I do diligently, so that way I know I can fulfill the job that I volunteered to do.
Great. Thank you for the question. One of the first things I do every day, not only for myself but for my family, is check in. I think our mental health and our mental state is important, and I want to make sure that my family, my daughters, are in a good place to go about their day. I also believe in respect, and that's respect for children as well as adults. Everyone has a bad day, and that bad day doesn't mean it's your fault. But we can respect each other and respond to each other in a respectful way, even if we disagree. And lastly, I believe in doing what you say you're going to do, the truth, and sometimes that's the hardest thing to do. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. So I guess the way I would phrase would be responsibility. Responsibility to my work when I have, such as being on council, or but responsibility to my family, responsibility to my community. Anything that I've been charged to do, I think responsibility to try to do the right thing. The second one is fairness and justice. I think it's part of the human condition is not to take unfair advantage of others. So I think that is part of kind of the honesty, but also looking for people that need help, that maybe we should reach out to. That's been very important to me. And the third one is a certain level of humility. And I don't mean that in, let me be concrete about that. We should never think that we are the smartest person in the room and that we just need to lecture other people. Everyone in any kind of environment has things to contribute, perspectives and so forth, and we should include those in our decision making, including your kids, my kids.
Another question?
You missed two.
John, yeah, sorry.
Thank the audience. So my number one is goal or thing I look to is integrity, and I would include honesty in that. And I learned a long time ago that bad news doesn't get better with age. It's not like wine. And so you've got to be honest and have the integrity to step up and do the right thing. I think also responsibility, which I include as doing your duty and taking responsibility for yourself and taking responsibility for the things you've signed up for and committed to. And last but not least, it kind of goes with his leadership, which is a little different. But I am always telling people there's a difference between managers and leaders. And leaders, I hope I've never asked anybody to do anything I wouldn't do. So if I'm on the trustee board at church, we're out raking leaves or digging ditches, or whatever, I'm out there at work, I'll do whatever I've asked, certainly willing to do everything I've asked anyone else to do at work. And I still am an emergency responder for federal response teams, and I respond, so I'm on call at this point, not tonight, but I am on call frequently and willing to go anywhere, anything, do anything that I'm asked to do. So I think those are my three.
Sorry. So thank you all for your attentiveness. So I'd kind of break it down into three areas: core values, integrity, honesty, respect for others, and kindness, I think, to others. I'd also then secondly say work ethic. Working hard, doing your homework, having the energy and putting in the time to do things well and right. And then finally, listening and learning is very important to me. I do a lot of that, as those of you that have been subjected to all my questions might appreciate. I really value that in my day-to-day life, whether it's doing a job or working with my kids or the community. I think that's a very important part of how I approach things.
Ed?
Hi, the Bio Canyon Trail question raised an interesting idea in my mind. I was wondering if you could tell me what factors you would use to make a decision between the equestrian group and the mountain biking group, two roughly equal-sized groups, let's say, with a larger silent majority. How would you make the decision? What would the factors be in making a decision between going forward or stopping?
Sorry, just checking. That's a great example because, again, that's one where I spent a lot of time both last spring and this recently in the past couple months talking to folks on both sides of that issue. And I guess one of the ways that I tend to approach making decisions is to kind of put up first and foremost, what are we trying to do here? So are we all about having a trail in Bio Canyon? I don't think that's the goal. I think the goal is to expand the trail system that we have so that it's beneficial for the community. And I believe that in talking to folks, quite honestly, in this particular issue, there's ways to do that. And so my approach tends to be, again, identify what it is you're really trying to do and get everybody on the same page as far as that, and modify it if needs be, right, between the different factions that might be involved. And then start exploring, okay, what are the problems with the different options that are out there for discussion? What are things that could be done to modify those options to make them better? So what are the trade-offs? And looking for wins. So one of the things that came out of some of these discussions was, well, the equestrian community is very limited on how they get down into Bio Canyon. What if we could also, for them, look at other trail options that would expand their access into other canyons? And so I think once you start exploring things in that way, you tend to have more of a potential for success.
John?
Thank you for the question. So first of all, I think we need to look at the overall, it's been said, the overall trail structure and our overall plan for recreational facilities and so on. So it's got to fit with that. I would also think that certainly the equestrian community needs to be considered. They've got a long-standing investment in their animals and their stables, and so I think if something new that comes in needs to be able to be, if it's going to be done, it needs to fit with that existing infrastructure. And so I think we need to find a win-win. There's got, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not convinced there's not a way to satisfy everyone. And I just think if we haven't found it yet, we haven't looked hard enough. So I think we need to do that.
Great question. As often, a lot of these decisions have two competing groups, so should Bio Canyon end up being in the top 4, then we would have to really start taking it seriously as to whether or not that's the option. To find the best for both worlds would be incredibly difficult if Bio Canyon is the choice just because of the logistics of that canyon itself. I totally agree that, if Bio Canyon is chosen, then the county would need to make an effort to start investing in ways so our equestrians can start exploring our canyons like they used to. We have a rich equestrian community here who used to explore the canyons even when Oppenheimer was still living here. So I would hate to keep making them, or not making them, but having them lose access to our wonderful canyons. But I also think you can find a path that the bikers could use that's still just as enjoyable without any logistics issues such as parking or hikers and bikers and horses all in the same area without a whole bunch in between.
So I think that that's a great question, and I think it really drives to the heart of how we individually are going to be looking at all of the issues that we face. And I'm a global perspective person. I like to look at the big issue and before I get into the nitty-gritty. So I agree. I think that we would have to look at all of the different options. And one of the things that I think is crucial in this particular issue is what is the reach of the new project, financially, scope, benefit-wise, and what's the sacrifice? And is there a trade-off that can be made that would be acceptable to all parties? If not, and I'm not in favor of taking something away to give the possibility of something new. I am very much in favor of expanding our trail system. I am very much in favor of fixing up our trail system. But I don't necessarily think that this is the best approach if it's not actually meeting everybody's needs. And like I said, engineering-wise, I just don't see that a horse is you're going to be able to engineer it away from being able to spook so easily, and injuries as well as the impact. I'm already interviewed people and have made up my mind halfway, so.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I guess in some sense it's a hypothetical question about what you would do if you wound up with Bio Canyon as the option that was selected and we had two competing groups. So I would like to take it back, I guess, and redraft that and think about it a little bit and say, so what were the values that led us to that? So we value recreation as a community, and I think we value recreation for a wide variety of users. And so I think that, like they're trying to attempt to do with the project, they're evaluating these different alternatives, looking and seeing if there are conflicts between different user groups. So if you wind up with one option, and I think that only some of the options have conflicts, other options have other issues, but that's where we look at the fundamental value, and then we look at alternatives. I think that the way we're looking at this project is actually one way to get people to work through it, because they can say, yeah, we value recreation, and what can we do to actually improve recreation opportunities for everybody, including equestrians and mountain bikers. So that's one way I think I would look at this particular problem, trying to solve it.
Did I mention that I oppose the flow trail? But if we do take that, I'm sorry, sir? Hypothetical. Okay. Thank you. Well, we currently have a group that's using a trail. So we've got hikers, we have bikers, we have equestrians on an existing trail. When the project was originally proposed, the ski hill was the target for that, for the flow trail. To take that and create a solution that then creates a problem for another group of people is inappropriate. I mean, you're bringing a problem to somebody else where everything is working fine already, and you got another group that's coming in and saying, well, we want to disrupt all of that in favor of one group, and let them go find someplace else to exercise. And quite frankly, I think the flow trail, again, because you're interrupting a group and a service that's already in place, the flow trail should be finding another location.
So let me be specific about the question and then more generally about how we address competing interests. So specifically about a flow trail about canyon, the equine versus mountain bikers. Well, they're both interested in the same thing. The equine people are very interested in hunting if it's safe and it doesn't impact their ability to enjoy their equine trails. The mountain bikers also want the equine. They don't want horses running in having conflicts. So it's really at this point more a matter of stepping back and letting the analysis continue, because I think in the final case it'll either be something that satisfies both, because safety is paramount, or we won't do the project. So it's not a situation where it's going to be one or the other. There are cases, for example, the roundabout, where some people are going to like it and some people are not going to like it. And when we have that type of situation, which I think is a real situation, and that does come up to council on a regular basis, is, as Sarah said, and others have said, you have to go back to the larger principle, to the more fundamental principles. And you have to do your homework, and you have to see if those are the only options, and then step back and look at the fundamental issues, and work forward again, and not be stuck with just an A-B case, because often there is a C example that is at least that satisfies them partially.
So I think this is a situation of unintended consequences, where we want a goal of tourism. We want to think of using the electric bus on this new bike float trail. However, there is a problem. The equine community has a valid point. I used to own a horse. My horse had a mind of his own. I have rode a mountain bike, not very gracefully, and have managed to fall off or fly off. So I think, and then, we have open space and the environment and protecting the environment. So there are a lot of factors coming into this, and I think they all are valid groups, valid concerns. We shouldn't take away from one group to give to another. If it's possible to come up with a trail that doesn't interfere with one another, is safe, then I think that's the way to go. However, I'm not in favor of a project that's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in our current fiscal situation. We don't need another project.
Okay, another question, not about flow trails. Andy?
Yes.
What are the most significant resources in Los Alamos that you think your service would rely on to perhaps develop?
Can you repeat
I'm
that?
sorry, I didn't hear that. Can you say it again, sir?
What are the most significant resources in Los Alamos that your service on the council would rely on and perhaps develop?
So I guess think about resources broadly. So obviously we have a well-educated and well-informed population of people. So I think we have citizens that are engaged. We have a lot of people that get involved in boards and commissions, and that provides a great infrastructure for the council to have input from the community. So I think that's pretty important to have, broad community input. Other resources that I would look at would be, just in terms of looking at the community preferences. We do surveys. That's helpful to understand for those folks that don't have the time to get involved in boards and commissions. I think surveys are a useful tool. I think things like this, town hall meetings are useful as well. So I believe in a broad way to get community input and support, and they're an important resource for proceeding as a councilor. You can't really make good decisions if we don't have that information. And I think that once we have that information from the community, we can actually find out what I alluded to in the previous response was, what are the values? What are the fundamental values of the community? I think that's pretty important in terms of understanding what things have broad support, what things don't have broad support in the community. So I think we shouldn't shy away from tough decisions, but we should first tackle the things that have broad support. And I think an example of that would be infrastructure. I was still talking, so I guess I got that.
Great question. I'm just going to follow up with Randy. You know, the best resource our county has is its people. They're educated, they're dedicated, and they love this community. So as a counselor, I would really encourage all of you who might be sitting in this room to look at openings on our boards and commissions. They provide a valuable resource to counselors to help make the strategic decisions that are facing our county. I've seen it done in practice with the Environmental Sustainability Board, and that's where we can be a conduit of the citizens to the council beyond the 3 minutes you might get at a public comment section on the council agenda. One significant resource I'd love to start developing, because it's one close to my heart, is the youth in town. They are a significant population, and the current generations coming up are far more interconnected than we give them credit for. They can communicate across a whole different bands of communication channels we might not even know exist. So if we need to get the word out across the town, the teens are where we should start. So I'd really like to start getting them involved in this process of how we make these decisions, because we make the decisions now, but they're the ones who live with those decisions long after we might have gone.
Thank you. Well, it's a good question, because it's not just what do we have, but what do we want to develop, right? So 3 things come to mind for me. We have our environmental resources, and we've already talked about development of trails and the options up at the ski hill for those trails and other places. And so I think looking at that as one area to rely on, it's part of the backbone of our community, and further develop makes sense. I think our businesses and things like our national park, our historical museum, and other museums, we've got a wealth of expertise here from folks that have learned how to make businesses run in this town. And a lot of people I talk to would like to see a few more small businesses and shops, restaurants. And so using that expertise to help others put those kinds of things into our community and be successful, I think would be really valuable. And the third area that comes to my mind is UNMLA. It's a great resource for our community now. It's more they could do for our community in terms of creating skills and employment opportunities for folks. I've talked to folks about expanding nursing programs. I think that's really exciting. That's a need here in northern New Mexico. And there's other areas where you could look at working with UNMLA as a resource to really grow what we can do with our community. So those are the 3 I might offer.
I think all those are good comments. Certainly, we have an engaged community. Going back to the roundabout issue, the consultant who came here a long time ago, I told them you better keep all your parameter files, because somebody's going to rerun all your models and make sure that you did it correctly. And I was proven correct about that. So there is, I think we have an excellent board and commissions mechanism that allows a lot of technical analysis, and we should continue to rely heavily on that. I think it's also very important for counselors and staff to be out in the community, getting input. Little things like the farmers market, or going, as many of us have been doing, going door to door. There are a lot of good ideas out there that we should take advantage of. There are a lot of good ideas, not just in our community, but in other communities. Often Los Alamos thinks that our problems are the only problems in the community, but we have a lot of commonalities, so looking outside our own boundaries. And finally, we have actually very thoughtful and trained staff. And we really need to allow them to be heard in terms of their professional view of some of these issues, because a lot of times that's where a lot of good ideas come from. And I think we actually have a lot of resources there, just internally from staff. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. As many people have stated, I mean, of course, the main resource we have and that adds value to us as a community are the people. And so I really think that I would like to see the development of that resource is education, and particularly vocational training, and training people to take the jobs that we need filled here in the county. And I know some of it's talked about a lot, but what I've seen, and I've kind of poked at it a bit, is I think we could do a much better job by pulling together the various resources and getting them to work together. I think we have too many, to use an old Army term, rice bowls that everybody's protecting, and we're not working together to solve the problems. So if we can get UNMLA and the school system and the county, to the extent it can get involved in that, and a lot of the other agencies to work to a single purpose in developing the talent we need, I think that's important. Also, I would also mention the county staff, and I worked with the county staff chairing the Environmental Sustainability Board, and they generally know what they're doing. And so I would rely on them, although, you know, I would ask a lot of questions, and I would dig deep at times, but I rely on them to do most of the analysis and come up with options. I like options. I don't know, I read a book, but I would just say options make you anti-fragile, right? So having options is a good thing.
Thank you for that question. I want to follow up with everyone, or something that everyone said. You know, the citizens are our greatest resources. I think right now we are in a situation, an opportunity for change. We have Triad coming in, and I've researched them, you know, and they invest in education and economic development and charitable organizations. I think, following up on what John said, this is an opportunity to seize on vocational development. We need machinists, we need apprentices, we need welders. Not only that, but we have a strong science community with the laboratory and with the new contract with Triad, so we should develop technical adventures. We should tap into our science people, into millennials who have great ideas and offer opportunities there to create businesses and put back into the community. I think that's our resource right there.
I'm in agreement that the community and its members are our greatest resource. But what we need to do is break down the barrier between the perception that they have no access to our county government and to our county council. We need to set up the town hall meetings. These need to be regular things so people can plan for them, not just some happenstance, bump into somebody at Starbucks, but we need to have a way for people to plan and participate in where this county goes. Next thing we need to do is tie in for resources to tie into our greatest money supply. When I took economics in college, they said the government was the biggest contributor to the economy. So we've got our county government, and we've got lands, or excuse me, we've got the laboratory. And what we need to do is get the county government to start spending its money in the town. We need for them to award contracts with the requirement that they use local labor, local businesses. And if we want to have things that we say we can't get through GRT, we need to be able to negotiate with lands, excuse me, old habits, and have them invest in the community because it'll be to their benefit as well as ours. So we should be going after the money that is both in the county government and at the lab to benefit the community and grow our citizens and promote involvement.
As with all of the questions tonight, this is an excellent one. We have so many resources, and yes, the people here are the primary resource that we have. And as a counselor, I intend to utilize that resource to the fullest ability that I can by being in the community and communicating with the community. Other resources, our trail system, our open space community, the people who manage and monitor the trail system that aren't paid, that go out and do it anyways, they're amazing, absolutely amazing, and they keep up. Anyways, I could go on and on. National parks, our business community here in town. I've spoken to several business owners, and I see several here tonight, that they give excellent feedback because they're in the trenches, they're in the thick of it, and they know what is working. And so having a positive relationship and fostering that relationship further, I think, is going to be one of the things that I rely on as a county councilor. And building that community of diversity in our businesses, we need strange new businesses, small businesses, big businesses. We need diversity in our business. And one of the ways we're going to find that is by looking at what other towns have done. And there are a lot of other towns, and I've talked to and actually reached out to several people in other towns. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so, all right, so what is your plan, the Reader's Digest version, if we do not get GRT tax from Triad?
Right, so if we don't get GRT tax from Triad, that's been a big concern. So I think we'll get a little bit because there are two subcontractors and some small businesses. So we will get some. But I've been researching how do communities create revenue in county governments. The first thing that comes up is taxes, and I don't want to increase taxes. I think we've had a lot of increases right now and we don't need any more. I've wondered, why is the county selling land? Why can't we rent the land the way the public school system does to people and let them build on it? Additionally, you know, I think we're going to have to tap into tourism and small businesses. I've talked to small businesses. There's so much vacant space here. In Albany, New York, they're having the same problem, same in Chicago, and what they've come up with is a vacancy tax and looking into fraudulent tax write-offs. And so if you talk to a small business owner here, they talk about the rent. It's so high. It's incredibly high. The old Hallmark is going for $5,000 a month. The old Blue Window, $8,000 a month. Who can afford that? If we don't have GRT, we have to depend on our small businesses. We have to try to increase tourism, or we're just going to be the way we were when we didn't have GRT. We're going to have to survive that way.
Thank you. The simple approach to it is we're going to have to scale back. And I think one of the places where we can look for efficiencies is going to be in our county government. We're going to need to look at the projects that we have in process. We're going to have to cut some of them off. We're going to have to prioritize, take a look at the things that are important to us. And I go back to Triad, and that is a lot of the GRT money has been focused towards capital improvement projects. And so what we need, and we've always taken on the responsibility of making the town perfect as an attraction to the people that are going to be working at Alamos. And I think what we need to do is sit down with the Triad folks and say, you know, this is really in your benefit as well. So even if you're not paying GRT tax, you need to contribute to the community because it benefits you as it does us. Now the good thing about that is that contribution from Triad isn't something that we split up with the rest of the state. Those can be direct investments into the community where we get all the dollars, you know, so we're not going to be sharing that. So it's going to be to our benefit to create a mutual relationship with Triad to the benefit of the community.
So we are going to have to scale back. And I will tell you, win, lose, or draw, whatever comes out of GRT or free-handing contributions, I've heard some people say, oh, well, if they don't do it, we've got to sue them. I disagree. We need to foster a positive relationship with them, okay? And we do need, we need to encourage them. But are we really a good bet whenever we've been frittering away so much of our money? You know, we need to, as a county council, show that we can be responsible and we can live lean and make our money count in the community for the benefit of the maximum amount of people, and that is infrastructure. Without having our infrastructure built properly, we're failing everyone. And I want my toilet to flush, thank you. And I think that Triad is going to want all of our toilets to flush. And they're going to have to. So I think that refocusing what our budget actually is, honing it down, bringing it back under control. And you know what? That's going to mean that we're going to need somebody in there that has a spine and can really say, I'm going to make the hard decisions. And that may cut jobs. That may cut, spending. That may cut back a lot. But, if it's going to benefit all of us, I think that in the long run is going to prove that we are a responsible community. Thank you.
So I think developing business and being less dependent on our major customer, our major tenant in the county is certainly a good idea. And actually was proposing that 4 years ago, and everyone said the lab will always be here, they'll always have a lot of money that's coming to the county, and I said, at that time it was a different issue. It was the decrease in funding for the work we do here, and now it's a whole different issue with the GRT. So I think that business development is a long-term and necessary thing. In the shorter term, of course, we're going to have to take action to stay solvent. So there's going to probably have to be some reduction in services, but I also would agree that we need to go and talk to not necessarily Triad, but NNSA. So it's the DOE, it's the federal government that pays the bills. Triad's kind of in the middle. So we need to talk to NNSA about certain things like the fire department. So they used to pay, when they didn't pay gross receipts tax in the past, they paid for the fire services. They don't pay that anymore because they're paying gross receipts tax, and it's covered as part of their tax payment. So that's a big chunk of money. So probably $5 to $8 million that they're going to have to recreate if we're not providing fire protection service. And there are other things like that. So I think there's going to have to be a discussion. It could get a little bit dicey for a while. We have a little bit of room because we'll be almost halfway through our fiscal year before we see the impact of that. Our fiscal year started in July. Triad takes over 1st November. The real danger is we won't know what that impact's going to be until January, February, which means we'll have to be doing something pretty drastic perhaps by then. But there are other contractors paying money. Part of Lionel has been spun off in the E3B and the environmental, and that cleanup, they're paying gross receipts tax. So I don't know if we know the full impact, but that's why you need some experienced leadership on the council.
So we would lose about $18 million, maybe more. The state would lose $30 million. I think that it's an existential issue for us, and so definitely I would encourage the council to talk to the IRS about protesting their filing for 501c3 status. I would talk to the legislature about correcting this awful loophole that lets a $2.5 billion company be taxed as if it were a church or a food homeless shelter. But if we're not successful, I think that we would definitely have to go back to fundamental services. It would be a very difficult and long process to scale that back. Talking about town hall meetings, if we think that having had 5 town hall meetings for reg projects was a lot of town hall meetings, if we have to restructure our whole local government, it's going to be a lot more of those town hall meetings. So it's going to be a very difficult discussion. And I just want to clarify that Triad cannot just volunteer payments. It's a cost plus, so they can't just decide that they're going to pay for some things. They're only going to pay what is reimbursable by NNSA. So as John said, the most important thing is to talk to NNSA and have them not force Triad to do what they're being forced to do right now.
So the first thing would be to figure out exactly how much money we're talking about. And that may take some time based on things that I've heard, but again, between 10 and 20, $30 million, it's significant. So the first thing I do is take a look at what we could do immediately. That means putting expenditures on hold, finding some economies for the short term, potentially using some carryover funds as are available. The next thing you'd want to do is determine the impacts. There's going to be impacts on county services, on the schools, on local businesses in terms of some of the things that the county does to help, for example, with the League of Grants and other things. The ability to diversify our economic base, things that we've done in that area, and then the broader impacts on northern New Mexico. The next thing would be to identify, okay, so what are our options for dealing with those issues? We could, as folks have suggested, and I think that'd be prudent, talk to NNSA about options and working with them, taking over payments for the fire department that we've taken on, other types of options they could come up with. Additionally, the option of working with the state to modify New Mexico tax laws in the context of broader tax reform. Those are longer-term strategic things that are options. And then basically put all those pieces of information together and define and implement a plan that supports the community's vision for where we want Los Alamos to be in the future.
This is the one question that always has dogged the campaign from the very beginning, and unfortunately they haven't made it very easy for us. So a few weeks ago, the county had a really good session about what the potential impact of the loss of the GRT could be and what options the county does have available to it. Of those options, the scaling back would have to occur. We just don't have a lot of our services, such as environmental services. Almost 2/3 of its budget comes from the gross receipts tax. So those are people who collect our trash, collect our recycle, and collect our yard trimmings. 2/3 of their budget come from gross receipts tax, so we keep our waste fees low. So we have to prioritize the essential services. We can't do without police, fire, water, power, garbage, because those ones are mandated by law. So we would have to prioritize and make sure those ones got the funding. Although I hate to see it done, we would have to not build any more recreation projects for the time being until we engage with the state, our congressional delegation, and NNSA to see what we could do to help alleviate this situation. Lanol itself takes almost 2/3 of our county and uses a huge amounts of resources that traditional counties could use to develop infrastructure and other tax bases. So for it to be able to be a nonprofit law, it utilizes 2/3 of our county's space, is a little hard for me to digest.
Yeah, so this is a potentially very unpleasant scenario with everyone discussing the loss of potentially 40% of the general fund revenue that covers a lot of things that you think, when you think of what Los Alamos County does, that comes out of the general fund. So we have some options for some things. As already been mentioned, the fire department has a contract. You can try to renegotiate that. That is a contract already in place. We can negotiate that with DOE. That may or may not happen. So we have options really of either cutting things dramatically, which is most of probably what we have to do, and we could look at potentially some fees. We could look at user fees potentially for certain things. Unfortunately, when you raise fees for things, lots of times there's a reduction in people using things, and so you don't get any more money. So we can look at options. We can look at options like that so that it's transparent, people can see what the options are. And I think that more broadly, it's just what's the more medium and long-term solution. So one thing that I've heard talking to people is that the rents are high, partly because of the landlord renting space in town, and they're a good tenant, and it's actually worth it for people who own buildings to leave them empty rather than to rent them out at a lower rate. So if this does happen, and it's permanent, we can certainly talk to Triad and say, well, would you make a commitment to basically reduce your footprint in the town? And we could potentially have some relief in that area.
Yes.
So as Mr. Robinson said before, getting teams more incorporated into like the council and stuff, do any of you guys have plans going forward to incorporate more of the youth into more city activities?
Could you speak louder?
Is this good? Do any of you guys have plans going forward on getting more teens incorporated into our local government and getting them more involved in the community?
Great question. Being a young person and getting involved in the community, I had to kind of navigate it myself and just kind of find those individuals in town who could point me in the right direction to where I could get involved. So if elected, I would be that person for our youth. And I would definitely do everything in my power to make sure that we incorporated your comments into our decisions. We could host teen days at the pond. We could start investing in the infrastructure that teens would love to see or have if we had the GRT tax. But it's definitely their vision would be a guiding principle for me because it's their town too. So even though I'll still be here when they are here, I still want to make sure the town is what they want it to be for when their kids are growing up. I'm so happy to see that the schools have finally been upgraded. So I'd like to see us continue upgrading the schools because I went to the same high school that Helen went to, that my parents went to. So seeing a new high school is wonderful. So seeing Barranco being updated, I think just making sure that they know they have a voice on our council. They have someone who at least somewhat knows their wants and needs would go a long way to start getting teens involved.
David?
So when I first got on council, actually, Councilor Wismer had started a youth, I forget the name, but it was something like a youth council. And the problem, so first of all, I would love to have that type of input. But an issue is a lot of highly motivated youth, such as yourself, who do Hill Talker. You also do all sorts of other things. You do sports and so forth. And it just became difficult to add yet another area for youth to be involved in. But if we can get that type of attention, I've talked with mayors from Roswell and Eunice and other places that have an active youth council. They even get a little budget, and they get to decide some youth activities based on their own polling of and they come up with proposals to the council. So if we can get that type of interest, I would love to get that re-involved. Just that we tried once before and it kind of flittered away because people were just, youth were just too busy, but I would love to get that going again if there is interest.
So, whenever I was going to school here at UNMLA, I was on student council, and I was a little mismatched out of place because I was a returning student, but I did student council, and all of the other people on student council, most of them were much younger, and they had amazing input. And one of the things that I thought was wonderful was the people in student council would attend the council meeting for UNMLA. I would want to incorporate student group of the high school and student group of UNMLA and inviting them to come and speak like we do our boards, and let them speak at the council meeting about issues that they're facing or projects that they're starting. I think that having that 15, 20-minute presentation would really benefit for both the council and the students so that they could understand the process a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you. When we talk about the value of the community and the community members, our youth are a very important part of it as well. And yet I know that students and our youth also face challenges that we as adults understand, but don't necessarily understand it from their perspective. I think it's important that when we talk about solutions that we want to put in place and opportunities that we want to create, we need their input to do it. We're not the experts on it. We were there at a time when there were different challenges and different technologies and different things going on that we can't really say that those solutions are necessarily the best for right now. I would certainly, and to that end, I would certainly encourage having a youth group that has input into the things that we as the county council think that we should be spending money on. For us to stand off on one side and do it independently of that gives us no good direction. The other thing that I'm proposing is that when the county awards construction projects, that we take a look at the county requiring the builders to create apprenticeships and job opportunities, not only for our youth, but for the other citizens in the community. It's going to help us grow their skill sets, and it will also help us address the issues of suicide, both in our teens and in our older workers.
Great question. So back when I was on peak, we did have a youth advisor, and it was somebody from the environment club at the high school generally. And that was a great addition. We didn't always make them sit through however long a meeting we were sitting through, and so I think some of the suggestions of having maybe a part of the session devoted to interests that they can certainly stay if they want, have interest to youth. And I think it's very important to get the youth involved and to get their perspective on things, because they're the coming generation, and I think we ought to be looking even further generations after that for really forward-thinking people. I think the youth are very involved in different things, and I think it's a great way if there are certain people that have an interest in local politics. I think there's opportunities, and we could find liaison positions maybe with other boards and commissions and things like that. And I think it would be a great network to have. And I think that maybe even some of those suggestions about making it less meeting, sitting, and more active type things, and coordinating people doing going out and outreach, doing activities. I think there'd be a lot of great things we could do.
So, first of all, I would just like to say hats off for the idea of engaging more and the efforts. I mean, you're participating tonight, so you've already started. It's great. A couple of thoughts come to mind. First of all, and this may be not exactly the age group you're thinking about, but one of the things that, whether I get elected to county council or not, that I'm very interested in doing following the election is getting folks excited about running in the next election, right? And participating and getting new faces involved. And I think that's really important to start that early and get the excitement going soon. With respect to teens, one of the ideas that somebody had chatted with me about that I think is really interesting one and might fit with this is the idea of having with this high school group that's being formed to get more engaged in politics, a kind of a reverse forum of what we're having here tonight. So the folks from the high school will be sitting up here, and some of us would get to sit in the audience and ask, well, what do you think you would like to do to get more engaged? What would be a good idea from your perspective on how to do that? And so really get the idea of interest and ways to do that from the teens themselves, and then actually listen and follow up. So pick a few things and then personally help push those forward. And I think that would be a good way to get started. Pick a couple things that come out of a session like that or a different type and move forward.
So thank you. I would certainly encourage and welcome a teen council, some sort of ability to get input from a broad spectrum of young people in the county. I would suggest, however, that there are lots of ways to participate in the county. I mean, I'm continually amazed at how many things that can be done. And I think that's where you learn on what those opinions ought to be and how you form good ideas, is to go participate in things. For example, I would have loved to have some teens helping when we sorted garbage on the environmental sustainability. So, I mean, you can help out and do plenty of things and learn what it's really like to manage things and to have to deal with people and to make decisions. And then have representatives on a teen council or some other board or a way to communicate. And that would be excellent. Thank you.
Yes. I grew up with the attitude that children should be seen and not heard, and I don't subscribe to that. My daughters have a voice. I always ask their opinion, even when they were small. So I think any engagement from our youth, any interest should be maximized. I believe this week that David said the way to get on the county council agenda is to make a request with 5 signatures. So I suggest you do it and you present yourself to the county council. I believe 2 weeks ago I met a young man, Javier McTeague, who came to speak to us and discussed a new club, iVote, which is a nonpartisan club at the high school to discuss politics and government. And we need future leaders. We need people who are going to stand up and make a difference. And our youth have great ideas. And being excited and interested, I fully support it, 100%.
I'm afraid we're out of time. In fact, I was going to end the questions, but then I saw Lexi's coming up. Next week. Okay, it's time for the closing statements, and we'll go in reverse order. If you want to come up to the podium, that's fine, or you can stay there, sir.
So as we've heard tonight, there's plenty of things to do. The next council will be very busy, I'm sure. And so there's things to do, but we also have to know, have the leadership to do those things and which ones to do. So, in what order. And the other thing is we won't know what the issues are going to be 2 to 4 years from now. And so you need an experienced hand, someone who's seen things and been able to deal with difficulties in organizations is important. I think there's 2 categories of things we heard about tonight. Things that are going on now that we just need to go do. And in that category, I would say, and my motto is, make it easy to do the right thing. Make it easy to start a business. Make it easy to get a building permit. We've got to work on that. The long-term things are also, we have to deal with. And I would, there are no problems that don't present opportunities. So we need to take those problems and figure out how to make them work for us. And I'm looking forward to a bright future for Los Alamos. And I'll mention, you notice the voter order here. That's the voting order on the ballot. I'm at the bottom, so look all the way down on the ballot.
Coming out tonight and sitting through all of us discussing our ideas. I want to say that I believe in change management, and maximizing on opportunities. I researched, the League of Women Voters Forum. In 2012, we were asked the same question about the GRT. And we need to do something different. We need to move forward, because if not, we're going to stay stuck. We're going to stay stagnant. And that's what I believe in, having a voice, making a change, working with the people in our community, reaching across the aisle between the code people with the government and the business owners, reaching across the aisle with the contractors and the code people, reaching across the aisle with our government and our citizens to make a change and move forward. I'm Dawn, trio of us. Thank you.
With this election and with the change in the land contract, we're seeing that we're going to have to change how we do things. We've got a train that's been running at high speed. We've got a county government that's been spending money like it was never going to end. We've got a council that's become accustomed to getting direction and ideas from the county government with their ideas and implementing those with a swift hand. We need to change that. We need strong leadership to stand up to the county government that is a large entity that really doesn't want to change the way that they do things. So the people that you elect to county council with the coming election need to be strong in character, be willing to stand up for you, recognize that you are the important part of the community, the county government is not. And we have to put our community first and get this under control. I'm Brady Burke. Thank you for your vote.
So, you've heard from me tonight, and I'm asking for your vote, but I'm also asking for you to do something that you have never done before. I'm not on this side or that side. I happen to be unique on your ballot, and there's going to be a different symbol there. I'm libertarian. And therefore, this could be the first time you've ever voted Libertarian as a major party. And I encourage you, try it out. It's actually pretty fun. The changes that I'm going to make, I think I've illustrated. I'm strong, and I will listen to you, and I will put you first and foremost in all of the decisions that I'm called upon to make, because it's a job of service, and I want to let me serve you. Thank you.
So, I want to thank everybody for all the great questions tonight and a lot of interesting responses from the candidates. I think you have a lot to think about. So, I'm generally optimistic about our future. And we had the question about the gross receipts tax, because that's a big question coming up. That could be kind of a game changer in how we're doing things. But I think even with that, we can look back to 10, 12 years ago. We did have a county, even without so much gross receipts tax. And of course, we have some other things that we put in since then, all the expenses that we have. But I think we can get through this. So I think we can all take a deep breath and say, yeah, we're going to get through this even if we don't get GRT for a while or for ever again. So with that idea, I think that we do need to look at economic diversification. So I think that's one thing I didn't quite get to in my opening remarks. But I think that economic diversification is important, and I think that we can do that through looking at the county as kind of a system. We have things, we have needs. I mentioned already that we have need for more housing. So anyway, I'll go a little bit more time. I'll just say, just my approach is to look at our common values and to work together. And so I'd like to do that with all of you. And if you like that approach, please consider supporting me.
Again, I'll share everyone's sentiment, but thanking you guys for coming out and sharing our time with you guys and answering your questions. I think these forums are very important. I love participating in them from this side. So come November 6th, 4 of us will be on the new council, and we'll become our first duty sworn in to serve you, the voters. And I'm humbled that I can be on this stage with 7 other people that I've worked with, or I've had discussions with, or I've debated with over the topics that are for this county. I think partnership and teamwork are what make the county council run. And being a cohesive team would be my primary goal, because we can't tackle the challenges that are facing us if we can't come to common ground. So as a candidate, that'd be my top goal. So I try and always find a quick little thing to remember. So there are 8 candidates on that list. I'm number 3. And you get to vote for 4 of them. So when you get to the 3rd vote, just remember me. I'm James Robinson. I appreciate it.
So thank you all for participating in this forum again. This type of opportunity is as valuable to me as a candidate as I hope it is for you as voters. As a county councilor, I will work hard for you. I will work respectfully with the community, with the county staff, and with my fellow councilors for you. And I will continue to listen to and hear you and learn from you. I'll commit to making myself available, as I have in my Let's Chat sessions, both in White Rock and Los Alamos. And as a side advertisement, I'm having my 8th Let's Chat session tomorrow, 5 to 7 at Bodacious Bob's Barbecue. I also commit to strengthening communication so that as we move forward together, we understand why we're making decisions, the options, the trade-offs, and the context of the decisions we make. I'm Sarah Scott, and I ask you for your vote.
Thank you again for your time. Thank you again for your time tonight. I lived in 6 cities in 2 different countries before graduating high school. But to my kids, Los Alamos has been their only hometown. So I owe a debt of gratitude to this community that has helped to raise my family, and it has been an honor to represent it. I think we have a lot of potential to make it an even better community to live and work, and for other young families like my own to come and raise their next generation of health outcomes. Like I mentioned earlier, there will be a lot of tough decisions ahead that we don't even envision now. But Los Alamos has a storied past, people potential like any other place I've ever lived, with strategic investment, asking the right questions, and pulsing the community, we continue to make much progress. I thank you for the unexpected opportunity I was given almost 7 years ago when I was first appointed to council, and I humbly request your vote and your support to serve again for the next 4 years. I'm David Israelovich, and I appreciate your vote.
I apologize for running over time, but I think it was worth it. And thank you all for coming out, and I'd like to remind you, we have another forum next Wednesday for District 43 representative, municipal judge, magistrate judge, and sheriff. So, same time, same place, but Wednesday.